What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Rum Pure Sports Morning Show. I am your host, Mangone. I am here with Jordan. He's from SaberSim, and we're going to be talking PGA today. We're going to be going through some stuff with SaberSim. We'll answer any questions you have and kind of, talk about all different stuff with the major going on here. We can build a player pool. We can do a lot here. So should be a good time talking the PGA Championship. I was just looking in the Discord chat and I saw Hoop in there saying that there's going to be 40-mile-per-hour winds on Friday morning. So we have a pretty big weekend in the PGA. Jordan, how's your day going? And are you excited for the PGA Championship?
I am very excited. Always love a major week here in the world of golf DFS. Excited to pull up SaberSim, talk a little bit of strategy, how to use the tools, and get into it here. So,
yep, I'm excited for it. Should be a really good slate. Obviously, when you get a major, we get tons of guys that are just like super cheap and like everyone feels like they're all mispriced, and you feel like you can make like a superstar lineup. So, always gonna be fun to go through stuff. Jordan, what are some of the stuff you want to go through in SaberSim to kick it off? Do you have anything you want to show the people? Like, what's your kind of thoughts here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to start off, I know we've talked about this a bunch for different sports, but not so much on the golf side. I just kind of want to, at least give an introduction of how SaberSim works, some of the advantages to using a tool like this for a sport like golf. And everything starts with our simulation. So when you hit the home screen here for the first time, you'll see, something looks pretty familiar if you've used other tools out there. We've got our projections, we've got ownership, we've got, some probabilities of different make cut, top 20, things like that over here. But we simulate out the tournament hole by hole here, round by round, thousands of times. And that's kind of where all of our data actually comes from that we end up using when you build lineups here. So we've got Rom, right, projected 84.59 points. Average projections don't end up meaning so much in golf, and we can see why just pulling up the distribution here. You can see in the actual sims, this data comes directly from the sims. We've got, the situation where Rom misses the cut probably doesn't happen very likely, but it's a part of his distributions here. And then this big distribution curve here of all of the times when he makes the cut, right? And then obviously the wins, the big high upside outcomes over here on the right. And when we actually build lineups here, we pull that information in automatically. So I think the easiest way to just see this right off the bat before we start talking strategy or anything like that here, I'm just going to build some lineups here. This is for like a 150 max, 10 to 50K size kind of tournament. And we'll take a look at what these lineups actually look like here. Anybody that's ever built golf DFS lineups with like a traditional tool, a couple pain points that at least I've experienced here, you end up with a crazy exposures to guys that just kind of project a little bit better than the next guy point per dollar. And your lineups end up being really chalky. You get kind of a bunch of cash looking lineups here. And right off the bat, big differentiator here with SaberSim, right? We're getting 30% exposure to our highest exposed golfer. It is Rom in this case. We're not just going to be blindly eating all the chalk. We're getting under on some of these guys, maybe a little bit under on Cantlay here. There's a lot of ways to add some value and do some things from here. But I just wanted to show that I think that can be a little bit of kind of a light bulb moment the first time you see a build get run on SaberSim, because it is really different here from the way traditional tools work. Any thoughts, any questions on that, that you have, Mangone, before I kind of go forward here?
Yeah. So I guess here's a question I'll ask. I think some people probably wonder that. You said like the simulations are ran based on like the distributions you showed. So if I make John Rahm's like projection, like 100, right? I move it up. Is that going to how is that going to affect the distribution and the sims being ran? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, good question. So what happens here? So we will take basically the difference of whatever your custom projection here is. So in this case, a little over 15 points, and we will bump up Rom's output in every individual sim by that same difference. So now in the sim where he scores like 100 points, he scores 115, the difference between whatever it was at the average. So yeah, that question comes in all the time. If I'm editing custom projections, if I'm changing projections around, do I still get to use the sims, that kind of thing? You absolutely do. We just basically the effect of this, the way this kind of ends up looking is it's as if we shifted his entire range of outcomes 15 points to the right in that case, which would be a pretty big bump. in golf obviously would be like the highest projected guy on the slate. But I do like to do a little bit of projection editing here for golf. We can get into that in a bit, but you still get all the value of the simulations when you're making those adjustments here.
Yeah, no, I figured that's a good question because I think sometimes people don't know if it's going to just take what you have and, kind of mess with that. So figured that was good there. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. We're happy to answer them for you here talking the PGA Championship. If you guys could, please hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate it over here at Run Pure Sports. And we got a pretty jam-packed schedule going on for you guys for, next couple of days or so. I'll go through it now. So we got Pin Seeker Show, 3 p.m. Big T, Tambo, Uncle T. They'll break everything down. 4:45, MLB Swing for the Fences Show. So if you subscribe to the channel, you get notified when we go live. You'll be able to check out the MLB show. Then they got the Final Countdown Show at 6 o'clock, doing the breakdown for Up the Lock for MLB. And then 7:15, we will have NBA Showdown. So you do not want to miss out on all of that. Then tomorrow, morning show tomorrow, I'm going to have Big T on, and we are going to talk about the basically like the ownerships that we have, right? Like I think sometimes it's great to talk about ownership once things lock, and it's good to do it on Thursday, not on Friday when one of the guys you thought was like the best play is like, down at like +8, so we're going to kind of go through and do a little bit of that. So that should be a good time there. Jordan, so what else do you got for us? People will definitely put some questions in the chat, I'm sure, but what's some more stuff you want to talk about? We could also, one thing I've done before on these shows, which is fun, is I built out kind of a golf player pool.
Okay.
We could talk about that a little bit too, and about how you kind of handle that. But we can do whatever you want.
Yeah, cool. Well, so, let's talk about this first. So we've got this build that we just ran here. And one other thing that I think is pretty cool about SaberSim is that, if we're building 150 here, we don't just build 150, we build this bigger pool behind it. We've got this pool of 500 lineups. These are all optimal lineups for different sims that we have of the tournament. It makes it really easy to adjust things and kind of dial things in here on this build screen without having to go back and get everything perfectly dialed in. So, maybe you're looking at this and maybe you want to be a little bit over on a guy like Rom. For example, we can set that minimum exposure right here on the build screen, maybe even like 50%. Say, I want to get, half my lineups with Rom in it. And right away, it split second, it adjusts it. We've got 75 of our 150 now with Rom here in there by sorting through that pool of 500 and finding the best 150 where Rom's in at least half of them. Maybe we want to take a stand on a guy like Daniel Berger. I'm just making stuff up here coming up as an example. Maybe we want to, max 10% on Berger. Same deal there. It makes it really easy. I know, in golf in particular, I know people really like to get pretty dialed in with their exposures. I do. I have pretty specific exposures I'm looking for most of my guys here. And it just makes it super easy to make those adjustments here on the fly on the build screen. So just wanted to kind of do that as, I guess, kind of a quick introduction of how to use SaberSim, of what's going on the golf side of things.
Yeah. I'm in the Discord chat right now. And then the weather is going to be a big talking point. I'm going to tell you that right now. Everyone is going to talk about this for the next, until leading up to lock. It's going to be the conversation point. Do you ever know how to handle that? We can always make groups and stuff like that, Jordan, but that is going to be the biggest conversation point. And I know ownership is going to gravitate towards the side that's going to have the better weather. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I know, a very common request we've gotten a lot, it's something that we want to add. Unfortunately, we don't have it here at the moment, is actual tee times in the app. So I think it's a good idea on a week like this here to make some adjustments, maybe bump up some of those guys that are playing in the better split. Maybe knock down some of those guys that are going to be dealing with the biggest wins. Is it Thursday afternoon, Friday morning? That's the worst of it. I think that's what I remember reading here.
Yeah. Friday morning's gonna be like 40 mile per hour, 20 to 40. And then it's, here's the thing though, if you guess it wrong and then it goes to the PM, then it's
absolutely right. Yeah. So for me, the way I've always kind of approached weather is if we've got weather concerns on Thursday, I'll make adjustments for it. If it's Friday, I think it starts to get tough because if it comes in 2 hours later than everybody's expecting, then all your adjustments are thrown out the window here. I do think it can be a pretty good idea, especially in a week like this where we have some weather concerns here, to make some adjustments. I like to do 10% adjustments to start with here of players, maybe 5 or 10% of their projections if they're facing a rough weather split. I think if I remember correctly, on the high end of the salary range, I think most of these guys are in that Thursday afternoon, Friday morning split. I think it's just Rory here that gets the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon. I do think that's an interesting idea. I don't know where ownership's going to go on that. But giving a guy like that a little bit of a bump here, just playing in that more favorable split, I think could be a pretty good idea.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a bad way to do it. One thing I see Big T talking about in the Discord is like people, they'll do like hey, we'll just make a bunch of mixed, like they'll be like PMs all together and AM all together. Just like they'll play a mix of both and just kind of keep them separate. That way you don't have to guess it. You kind of fall into it. But yeah, I wish you could just pick our guys and wouldn't have to be such a concern.
Right.
It's the frustrating part about it. But Benny's asking if you guys got super draft on SaberSim, or is that something in the process? What's your thoughts on that, Jordan?
Yeah, it's been on our roadmap for a while. It's something that we do want to add. We've been in a big push just to get other sports up. Has been kind of our big priority, getting basically everything that's up in the DK lobby up first. But once that's done, we do want to branch out. We do want to get out there to other sites like Super Draft. So that is something that's in the works for us there.
Awesome. Ethan says first time using Saber. He says it's huge. So yeah, love having you on board, Ethan. If you haven't signed up for SaberSim, you can do that over there at Run Pure Sports. You can get that as an add-on package. So be sure to do that. All right, Jordan. So anything else you want to show us here with the what's it called, with SaberSim? What's kind of the next thing you want to go through?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good introduction. I think it'd be pretty fun, for us to maybe kind of go through a build together. I know you'd mentioned maybe crafting a player pool here. I think we could, I don't know, kind of just walk through a build, walk through maybe a combination of our two different processes here and kind of see what we end up with on the other side.
All right, yeah, so that works. So I'll tell you what I do, but I'm not saying it's correct or whatnot. I feel like you'll be on the other side and you won't be on board with what I do. Okay. I just kick everyone out of the pool, like everyone. I get rid of all. Now, if you want to keep them in there, I understand. That way, it's for me. I guess I put too many. My issue that I've had is I have trouble taking guys out. Right, like I stare at like Victor Hovland and like I don't know if I want him, but I'm like, no, it's Victor Hovland. Maybe I'll get his share, right? And then I just feel like I get overexposed to guys. Now, the thing you can do too is like once you run it all, if I got like 80% Justin Thomas, then like yeah, like I maybe now I can add in a Victor Hovland if I want. You know what I mean? What is your process? Because that's definitely something that I've kind of done so far.
Yeah. No, I don't. So I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've talked about this with AP a little bit back and forth as well. So I take like the total opposite approach. I'll leave everybody in. Yeah. And I play with a pretty wide pool, especially for a major week where I think projections are going to be pretty close together. Tough course. I like to start with just kind of having everybody out there here. And going from there.
Let's go your way. I want to try yours out. Cause I mean, I can, maybe I'll learn some stuff along the way that'll help make me better, but
okay, cool.
I definitely don't, I currently like, but we'll see what I end up doing for my teams when I build them out later.
Yeah. So let me start. Let me start and show you. So a lot of times my research for golf, it starts with a specific kind of build. I'll build some lineups to kind of do some research here. And what I actually do is, so I'll use basically these kinds of settings here, and I'm going to turn min salary off here for a second too. And I should explain what I'm doing here. So sim variance, right? So this slider basically is going to control how many sims are we looking at for a given lineup. At 10, which is the highest this goes, we're basically every single lineup is going to be built based off one tournament simulation of how this thing could actually play out. We'll take one random sim and build the optimal lineup for it. And I'm turning ownership fade off here too. I don't want to adjust anything for this build for ownership, mostly because I want to look at the ownership and I want to see how people compare to their ownership projections. And then I'll build 1,500 lineups. And basically what I'm going to get out of this is I'm going to get a 1,500 tournament simulation sample of the way that the PGA Championship could actually play out. And then I compare, how often are guys showing up in those optimal lineups for different random sims against their ownership. And that kind of ends up being a way for me to start that research process, start figuring out what some of the guys that I might want to take some stands on here, what some of the guys I might want to fade, what some of my favorite plays of the week are here. So we'll let this build finish here and I'll kind of talk a little bit more, give some examples of what I'm actually doing here. And then we'll go from there. Cool. But let this build finish up here.
No, so yeah, you run the 1,500 just to kind of give you an idea of like what the pool is, to like see what things are doing, right? And Rom then comes in at the highest, Spieth, Cantlay, Berger. are those the things you kind of are looking at right away? You're seeing like who's coming in at like the highest ownerships.
Yeah. So this exposure column, right? This is the percentage of this 1500 slate simulation here where those guys are in the optimal lineup, right? We're saying essentially Rahm's got about a 23% chance to show up in the optimal here for the slate. And what's interesting is we got the ownership projections paired here right next to it. And if this number is right, meaning this is the accurate ownership projection. Sometimes I disagree with the ownership projections here. And this number is right, meaning this is the actual percent chance of the time that he's optimal. There's a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity here where like one of these has to be wrong. Either the field's wrong or the sims are wrong. And I generally lean on the side that the field is wrong here. So I'll kind of go through this.
Jordan, here's my question for you. Just ownership wise, if you want to import your own ownership or like make adjustments to your own ownership, are you able to do that? Because like that's something sometimes, like for instance, I remember my best example when I was doing NBA. I remember it was really close to lock, and like Real Neto was someone that like he randomly became chalk, but like obviously it's hard for like everything to update in time, and I had like 5 minutes. So like when I was running, my projections had like a 30 projection on a 3K point guard at 5%. Like, of course, when I'm running a single entry build, that thinks that that's my differentiator, but he's not a differentiator, right? Like he's going to gain ownership. So like, are there ways to do that? That way you can kind of like adjust the model a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ownership projections here on the home screen, you can just make adjustments on the fly. And actually, I think the ROM ownership with the current SaberSim projections here is a little off to me. I have a hard time seeing 32% owned for him this week. You can just bring that right down. I think maybe something like 20 might be a little bit closer, maybe even a little bit lower than that. If you've got like an ownership file, I know there's a Run Pure ownership that'll be coming out here as well. You can upload that here right in this field. You can do it with a CSV. If you want to just copy and paste into this table, you can upload ownership here pretty easy and just overwrite all the ownership. And then we'll use those custom numbers here.
So, yeah, I mean, the reason I ask it too is like a lot of people are set in their ways. We like to do what we've been doing, and like maybe switching to a new optimizer or new tool is harder, but they like what they see, and maybe they want to import their own ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just basically saying, like, I'm just wondering if there was the optionality for the people. I mean, I knew it. I was just kind of doing a whole, asking the question to see if the people, could like that or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, so our ownership projections are generated on kind of a computer-based algorithmic model here. Golf in particular, I think you get a lot of those narratives, short-term form and course fit and history here can end up really kind of shifting the ownership projections pretty significantly. So I think it's one of those sports where, especially if you're playing every single week, you've got kind of an intuitive idea of where ownership can end up falling. It's a good value add, I think, to make some adjustments to ownership just based on what you're seeing here. I mean, another guy, I right off the bat, I think Xander's probably going to come in a little bit higher than 13% owned. That might be another guy I give a little bit of a bump in the other direction too there. Had a great round 2, 3, and 4 last week. I think I remember hearing if you just scratched round 1 off, Xander would have won the tournament by 2 shots. So I think he's going to be pretty popular here this week at that 9.3 price point. So making some adjustments to those ownership projections to get that dialed into where you think that's actually going to end up is a really good value add.
Yep, for sure. So I guess we can go back to what we were doing before. We were messing with the pool.
Yeah. So I'll do a kind of a quick summary of what I like to do here. So I'm looking for the guys that I think are either going to be much higher owned than their percent chance to be in the winner, or much lower owned than their percent chance to be in the winner. And you can do that here with this leverage column. So a lot of times this ends up being, I'll find some of my favorite fades on the slate here, assuming that I like the ownership projection here. And one guy that jumps off Cantlay, I think 26% ownership actually might be pretty close for him. Only showing up in the winning lineup 15% or so of the time. That's, a negative 11%, basically an arbitrage between that ownership and exposure. That's a guy that right away would probably be on a list of players that I want to fade for this particular week. And I'll go through and basically kind of look at each of these guys sorted this different ways here, looking at maybe the highest exposed guys, looking at maybe the most positive and most negative leverage here, and just kind of start to build out, what is my strategy going to look like here for this particular event. And I think this is a little bit weird too. I'm not a big strokes gain guy. A lot of times I end up kind of playing this almost more like it's a financial market where we've got, this is the price of ownership that it takes to roster, and this is maybe the true value here, and finding where my opportunities are going to be on this particular tournament that way.
Okay. One thing I was going to say, so did you kick out? I may have missed it. Did you kick Xander from the pool, or how did you handle him?
No, yeah. So that's a good question here. So I'll basically, again, I don't end up getting rid of anybody here on step one. I don't have any problem with that, either. If you say if that's the fade, Cantlay is another guy that I think maybe looks a little bit overowned. If that's the angle, I have no problem with that. But I'll leave them in my pool here, and then I'll build another set of lineups when it comes time to actually get lineups into the contest here. And I just want to make sure that I'm underweight on these guys. And this is just my approach. I like to spread out. I like to have exposure to a lot of different guys. I'm probably not Xing Cantlay or Xander here, but I'll probably at least want to be half the field or less on my exposures. What can be useful though here is, for me, if I think a guy's going to be overowned, but he's still got a 15-20% chance to be in the optimal lineup, one of the better plays overall in the slate, I might still be okay having a little bit of exposure. I just might want to be underweight on it instead. So this now would be kind of my build that I'd be actually taking with me into the contest. I'll see what the exposure on these guys comes out as, and I'll show you what I do if I'm not liking what I'm seeing here.
I will say this is funny. I just saw the tweet happened to come across my timeline. Maybe Big Brother's watching us, right? They hear me talking about it, but it says you might not believe in the AM PM wave, but DraftKings certainly does. And like all the DK odds, apparently all the guys that are like you got John Rahm is John Rahm's 35-1, right? Like that doesn't happen much, right?
Yeah.
Like that must be my guess is it's because John Rahm is on the bad side of the draw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just interesting. That's really crazy to think. Like if I told you PGA Championship, Jordan, John Rahm is 35-1, you would literally over the next 10 years at any major, you would bet that. You know?
What I mean? Absolutely. Yeah, it's wild. And I mean, it sounds like it's going to be pretty gusty there on Friday. I'm interested to see how that shakes out. I'm pretty sure I'll have to double check that. But I remember seeing that, like, I think, let me get salary up here. Do we have salary? Am I crazy? Where's salary? Might be because I got this thing all zoomed in here. But I remember reading that I think most of these guys above 10K, except for Rory, are playing in the bad wave there. So it's gonna be interesting.
I mean, Scheffler's 40-1, and it's probably because he's on the bad wave. Like that's my guess. I mean, I don't have all the tee times up in front of me, but it is pretty wild. The betting markets have definitely adjusted to this. And Jordan, the one thing I will say, I think in PGA is I think the betting markets are like, if I could use only one tool in PGA DFS, whether it's a projection or maybe ownership's the most important thing, but like Vegas odds are very important to me. So that's something I'm going to take note of for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think it's a pretty efficient market, especially at close, as we get to like tomorrow morning here, seeing where those end up. It's going to be interesting. I think, I don't know. I don't know the best way to react to that. I don't know if it's been a while since we've had an event where there's this heavy of a weather split.
Well, we had it not too long ago, but I don't know if it was this heavy, but it totally like went like it went south. You know what I mean? Where like it didn't work out and there were delays. So the other thing too is ownership condenses then too, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's like all those guys in that tee time are like owned. Like it's a big enough field where maybe you're not going to see that as much, but I know we're talking about it a lot and I'm bringing it up a bunch, but it is pretty crazy to see the betting markets adjust the way they have. Like I said, Scotty Scheffler at 40-1. If I told you a week ago about that, you would be like, you're absolutely nuts. That's not a real line, but it's a real line.
What's Rory's outright at the moment?
Let me see. It was a screenshot. I could pull it up online. I bet you.
I would just be curious because I do think he has the good split. And I think he's the only one above 10K.
Oh, sorry. DK. So the one I'm looking at, it's like it says 20-1 here. That was end of the round leader.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I think that was why. That's why it was like that. But let me look. I'll pull it up just to check. So Rory is 12. He's the favorite at 12-1
for
Scheffler,
first round leader or to win it.
To win it. So he's 12-1 to win it.
Yeah.
Scheffler's 12 to win it. My bad. So the thing I was looking at, it was that was for the end of round 1 leader. So that's why that was the key. So that's why those guys are so much further down.
Gotcha.
But that makes more sense now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think, so I'll jump back to this build here. I'll kind of show maybe the way I'll end up handling this with a couple of those names that I had mentioned here. So one, right. So Cantlay, right. That was a guy that popped as maybe a fade here. In this build, we're still getting 31% of him. I'll knock his projection down a little bit, maybe bring that down, even just 5% and just see what that does. And see where that exposure ends up. And the reason I like to do this with the projection is because I can you can almost use SaberSim as an advisor here and say, if Cantlay's actual average projection was 10% lower than what we've got, right? Then what's the optimal amount of exposure to get? And again, even on a guy that maybe is my favorite fade of the slate, this is just how I play. A lot of times I'll still be willing to have a little bit of exposure to him. Maybe come in about half the field, something like this. But that's the way I typically end up doing these here. Cool. I mean, I kind of want to bounce back to step one and hear, what your approach looks like. I always like hearing what other people are doing. It might be an opportunity maybe for me to maybe start taking a little bit heavier stands, doing something new. So if you've got kind of a player pool that you end up, Xing out most of these guys here, it sounds like how many players would you end up taking with you into your pool here?
I think it depends. Like if I'm doing there's a big difference if I do 20 teams or 50 teams versus 150, right? That matters for one. Let's at least start there. You don't build the same player pool, in my opinion, for that. One thing I like to do is I'll start. So I'm not going to worry about weather. Let's not worry about weather. It's a whole other dynamic.
Sure.
We're just trying to build out a pool like I kind of do for most weeks. So I try to pick a couple guys at the top, right? Scheffler is one that I would be playing. I'd sort by salaries. That's how I like to go by in the range. So I go Scheffler. I'd plug in Scheffler first for sure. Mm-hmm. I'd probably plug in JT. That's another guy that I like a little bit this week.
Yeah.
And I start off small, right off jamming as many, and then maybe I can grab another one. So I got 2 guys above 10K. I'm perfectly fine with that. Maybe I'll slide into Rom or Morikawa later, but I don't need to. So now I'll go to the 9K range, and I'm really big on Hideki this week. Hideki's someone that I want to take a pretty big stand on. So I like him. No, not high on Hovland. I always like to make sure too, while I'm doing this, I like to look at the ownership and see, make sure, especially when I get to the 7K range, I like to make sure I'm getting in guys that are 5% owned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's really important as well. Because I think sometimes just plug guys in. It's well, if my pool doesn't have anyone that's in the 5% range, I just keep plugging in all these 10% guys. Well, at the end of the day, they don't have one guy to get me home. One thing I like to look at with my lineups is I want at least one guy single digits, right? I want one guy that can kind of bring me home. Now, they don't all have to be. I could have 3 single digit guys, and that's great. You know what I mean? If I like them, but that's definitely something I look for. I don't want every single player to be above 10%. And SaberSim will kind of do that for you. I believe, right? As long as I make sure the pool has guys like that, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, it will. And let me show you something on that note here, something pretty cool. We're going to get this message because our pool is a little small here at the moment. But one thing you can actually do, we added this recently, is these player groups here. So if you wanted to kind of force that in, you can actually go in, add a group here, and then sort by ownership. And we'll just do bottom to top here. Obviously some really low projected guys here, but if we click this last guy in the list here and then go, you said single digit, right? So we'll scroll all the way down to, let's see, Tommy Fleetwood, right? 953. Shift click. We can add all of these guys to a group. And I know probably all these guys aren't going to end up in your pool here. Save that group and then say at least one. And that'll actually make sure, SaberSim will keep track of your ownership and make sure that you have lineups that are pretty well leveraged against the field, that kind of thing. But if you want to actually force that in, I know a lot of people like to have those rules, like to see every single lineup having that guy in single digit ownership. You can add a rule in there just as easy as that and make sure that we end up getting that in every single lineup, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's definitely awesome. Definitely. I like to use the groups at times. Another group I've done before in the past is I think it was better. It's better on the weeks where, for instance, when you have we've had a lot of weeks recently where there's just like a ton of 7K guys, right?
Yeah.
And like they're like the same as the 9K guys. Like Cameron Tringale's 9K and like Matt McNeely's 7K. And you got like two guys at the top. It's like you only have Scheffler in the field and like Rory. You got like Tyrell Hatton's 9-9, who I don't want.
Yeah.
Like what I'll do is like I'll make it give me at least one of Scheffler and like Justin Thomas. If that's how I want to build my team. Like let's say I want to make sure I'm jamming at least one guy above 10K for my build. Like let's say that everyone is building balance. Well, if everyone's building balance, a unique way to build my lineups out would be by just spending above 10K. Now,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a way that you could do it. I also don't think you have to do it with all your teams. Like what you could do is like, let's say I'm playing 100 teams. I can make 50 of my teams like this with these kind of builds and then like go from there. Like if you want to, you can make 50 of your teams AM, PM time or AM times, 50 of your teams PM times, and the other 50, a mix of everything, right? That's a great way to kind of get exposure to the weather narrative without like totally punting it off completely. I know Big T talks about if you're going to do it, typically go all in, but that's a way to kind of get exposure to it. So there's tons of ways that you can kind of build this out. And also at the end of the day, you're still making good teams, right? You're still building with the players that are like from your pool, which makes it okay for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
All right, so Hideki's one guy for sure that I would want in there, no doubt. I'm not playing Xander. I don't need Xander. I think he's going to be overowned, kind of like you said. I was not super high on him already. I like Cam Smith. We can plug Cam Smith in there. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
He's someone that I like a lot that I'll be sure to get in there. He's at the 9-9 range. You put him in?
Yeah, I got him.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah. It lagged for me. So I didn't know. I'm never a big Jordan Spieth guy, especially when he gains ownership. Like I'm good. Like he's just hard to predict. I wouldn't mind mixing DJ. And I mean, he could really like lose some ownership. So we'll toss him in there. Don't think he's a bad option as well. So Zalatoris is interesting. Zalatoris, people always like crap on Zalatoris. Like, oh, Zalatoris can't win an event, right? But he's 8-9. Do I need him to win the event? I don't need him to win, but he's a good golfer. I'm going to put him in there. I'm happy to have him in there. He's not over-owned as well right now, which is good. Cantlay's one. I'm surprised to see the 25%. Do you think that's a correct ownership on him?
I think so right now we're projecting him as almost the highest owned golfer in the field. I think that's a little bit high. I think at 9-1, I think we could see him at 20%. I think that sounds like a little bit of a better number. I do think he's going to be pretty popular. Especially looking, let's sort back by salary. I think, you start to get down to this range, looking at some of the other names around this area. I think it's going to be a pretty attractive price for people. I do think it's interesting with Hideki right there. I'm curious, Hideki's looked good recently. I don't know if just because of how much people have gotten burned throughout this year, if people might still be a little bit scared of his name, clicking Hideki's name. I think that's going to be a big challenge of where the ownership goes in this low 9s range overall. But I do think Cantlay is going to be pretty chalky.
Yeah, agree. I do think you're going to see Hideki higher than that. I assume it's going to be above 15. It could even hit 20. So I think he's going to gain some traction. Let's put Cantlay in the pool because I kind of want to get exposure to him.
Yeah.
I might later on, maybe we kick him out, right? I just kind of take note. Like this is a guy that I want to play with. Maybe I end up getting rid of him later on. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how I go through and build it out. So I think that's good where we're at there for the 9K. Well, actually, here's one more question. Brooks, what are you doing with Brooks Koepka? Because I mean, a golfer that like crushes at majors and the ownership is like 3%. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's a guy that I almost have to have in my pool. If this ownership number is accurate, I don't think he's going to be very chalky at all. I mean, you're talking at 3 to 5%. If you get 10 or 15% of him, you've already got leverage over the field. It just seems very easy to get to 10 or 15% Brooks. Honestly, it's a guy I want in my pool. And I think this number is a little bit low. I think this projection looks a little bit low. That might be a guy that I just maybe bump up right away just to get, again, like you mentioned, we can get off of him a little bit after in the build if we want. But I kind of want to bump him up, at least make him similar to some of these other guys in this range so we can get a little bit of exposure if we want to go that route.
Yeah, one thing worth mentioning too, I think this is going to be key as well. If you look at the tee times, right? And you have a guy that's like, you think is going to be low owned and he's next to like all of like the afternoon tee times, well, that people are probably going to plug him in. Like Xander's an afternoon, Hideki's an afternoon, Zalatoris is an afternoon. I know Cantlay is not, but I mean, I could keep his ownership down. So like, that's something I look at when it comes to the weather stuff of like, who are you in the same range as? You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like when you have a WD, maybe like an hour or two before. Well, who's in that range? Because they're just going to gain so much ownership. So that's something to look at. I think the tee times that could matter a little bit. Do you kind of agree on that?
I 100% agree. Yeah. Especially with the withdrawals. And I don't know if we have anybody, I mean, Casey's already out. I don't know. Do we have anybody that's kind of still a withdrawal risk for this at the moment? I think seems like we've gotten all of our news in here.
Yeah, no, I mean, Casey's gone. So I think we're good there.
Yeah.
You know, who's a guy I'm going to add in the pool, and I always add in the pool. In these conditions, Shane Lowry, good wind player. Like he's in. Like, I mean, if it is windy, he can figure it out. He's a good wind player. I love the Neiman right there, 8.5. That's the guy I think gets like really overlooked that I like a lot. And I would make sure to have exposure to on my teams. So I'll definitely look at him. You know, I'm going to add in the pool, and I'm a bit of a Bryson homer, Jordan. So I'm going to put him in, but if he doesn't fall and stuff, I'm not going to force it. I'm curious to see what it looks like. I mean, here's the other thing too. 62 projection versus some of these other guys. He might not even fall on some of my teams, you know, so it's like perfectly fine. But I'll put him in there. Also, we'll talk about that when we kind of get further in. So Corey Connors, that's one guy. Corey Connors, I'm happy to throw in. He's just a great ball striker. The two stats I'm looking at this week personally are approach and around the green. Mm-hmm. And hey, good approach players. If they're not good around the green, that's fine because it doesn't matter. If they're just darting it the whole time, it doesn't matter at all. I'll put Louis in too. I love the 8K tag on Louis. Like 9K would be a little more uncomfortable, but again, he doesn't have to win at that price, right? Fitzpatrick's another guy I'll probably throw in there. I like him at 7. This range is really loaded, right? Like, I don't know if you're noticing that, but
absolutely.
A lot of good golfers that you can go to. Like Finau's another one. Like 7-9 Finau is way different than like 8-9 Finau or 9K. Like, so I toss him in there. Who are some guys you like? I mean, you could toss some guys in here too. Is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Homo was a guy in some of my first builds that I was doing here. A very similar price range, but a guy that I was interested in here at this price. I do think the ownership is interesting at the low 8s, high 7s range. I know we've got Louis pretty high up here right now. I don't really know if that's what I think is going to happen. Curious what your thoughts are here. But I do think his is probably going to come in a little bit lower. I think Matt Fitzpatrick, always a guy that seems like he's pretty chalky, is maybe a little bit likely to be at least above that 15% ownership range. But what do you think there on the ownership for these guys?
Yeah, I think Homa's ownership, Connors, and I mean Fitz for sure. I think Finau he'll gain enough, right? Like he's 50, he'll be like 15, right? He's not going to be like single digits, but the key with this is like, if a lot of people play, like, let's say a lot of teams are slamming in like Connors and Fitzpatrick on their teams. Well, like, then they have no more room to plug in like another 7K, like high 7K guy, like typically. Right. So like, then other guys naturally will lose the ownership. And I think what you're going to notice is, and I feel like we saw this last major, there's going to be some guys in this 8K range that just don't get ownership, right? Like, I would say like Daniel Berger is going to be a little bit lower. Like maybe we throw Berger in there. I think Berger's not a bad one to put in. So we go back up and toss Berger in for me. I mean, Bryson, Tiger, they're both not going to have ownership. Now, again, I do what you want with them, but I'm not going to do Tiger. But I put Bryson in. I mean, again, I'm definitely a homer for him. But then there's got to be a couple of these guys in this 7-8 range. They just have to not get ownership, right? Like above 7.5. So like, between like, I think Jason Day is like, and again, we're trying to win GVPs, right? I'm not trying to chip my double up. So Jason Day has the upside. I don't mind throwing him in at lower ownership. It looks like people are gravitating towards Cam Young, which like, I don't know. I like him, but I don't need to do that. Like, it's fine. But like, there's like, would I rather go Cam Young or like an Abe Answer or an Adam Scott or a Mark Leishman? Guys with like crazy win upside. You know what I mean? Like, so I'd rather plug those guys in than like plugging in like a Cam Young, you know, like, I don't know. Do you kind of agree with me on that?
I agree. And I think this is another name that is probably going to be a little bit more popular than we have marked here. And to me, doesn't really stand out amongst this group. I'm totally down fading there, going a different direction. I was going to say Jason Day's name too. I like that call there. One thing I think you can use too, that I think could be pretty interesting, especially as we start to get down to these lower ranges here, is using the data over here and just seeing how often these guys flash their upside in the simulations, right? And looking for guys that kind of stand out here. I mean, Jason Day showing up, pulling off a top 7% of the time in the sims, and it stands out amongst some of these other guys at this range here. And clicking a name like that here, just using some of that sim data that's over there for you on the side, I think it'd be pretty useful. I've always
thought Jordan, that's a great thing to do. And I actually like to do that with the Vegas odds too. I'll look at first, let's say that I think Cam Young is really a good play, but his top 20 is plus 700, while Billy Horschel's is plus 600. And let's say it's he's 5% owned. It's well, I mean, I don't know. It feels like more of a no-brainer to go for someone like that. I like Billy Horschel. That's another guy I definitely want to add in there. But using the sim percentages on the side, I haven't done that in the past. And I definitely think I should start doing that for sure, comparing with that.
Yeah, I think just as another source to consult here too. One question we get a lot here is, where does this number come from, and how attached to Vegas is it? And that for golf in particular, these don't use the Vegas odds at all. So it is a true second opinion here. You can see what Vegas thinks and see what the sims think and kind of come together, building out your player pool that way. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great. And so guys down here, and I'll admit I've been traveling a little bit, so I'm not as up to speed as normal.
Yeah. And I haven't done all my research for this either. I think it's just kind of fun building out a pool. I'm
looking at some of the prices because again, the low 7, some guys sneak in and stuff. Pat Reed 7.2 is funny. Justin Rose 7.2. It's these guys who in the past have been great. I like Matt McNeely at 7.1. That's a good one, I think.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'd want to get in there the upside that he has. I don't know what to do with Coke. I don't know if this is the best Coke rack course. I have to look into him a little more. Yeah. What are the sims saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we're starting to get down to this range where, just lower price guys have a little bit less upside, but he is a name that does kind of stand out based on the sims here. 6.5% chance for a top 10, 13.5 for a top 20, a little bit higher than some of these other guys. Russell Henley is a name. Curious if you're on him this week, but that's a name that he's really popping in the sim data here to flash a little bit of an upside at 7.2.
I'm curious what his ownership is. I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't love that top 5 equity, I guess, as much as the sims do. I mean, of course, I'm not saying I know more than the sims, but I don't believe it totally. Do you agree with it? I'm kind of curious your thoughts.
I don't know. I mean, so that is one of the things where, the pricing that comes out on DK at least kind of starts following the opening Vegas odds here. And when I see a guy, and they can be wrong, but when he's standing out, 60.71 average projection against Luke List, next name up 51, it starts to make me doubt a little bit that there could be that wrong of a pricing discrepancy all the way down here. I'm curious I bet he's one of our best value plays on the actual slate here. Actually not so bad. I'm fine leaving him out. I think he'll probably be a little bit chalkier than we're giving him credit for here as well. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not dying to play him. Go up real quick just to see if there's anything else that I missed. Scroll back up a little more. Just want to just check. Oh yeah. Okay, good. All right, yeah, you can scroll back down. So go back to Mav. I know there's a couple cheap guys I like. I really like Alex Noren. That was one guy I wanted to plug into the pool. Mm-hmm. I think he's a really good play this week. Let's see. I'm wondering. Gosh, HV3 has really good sim stuff. I know I've heard some good stuff about him this week. Man, I guess plug him in, but I'm not the biggest HV3. You know what I really like is I like Rob McIntyre. That's a guy I plug in a lot. I think he's a really good play. Too cheap. And I should plug in Harmon too. Harmon's always Harmon's just a good golfer. I'm kind of with Big T. I just plug in Harmon a bunch. He's pretty solid. Feels like he always gets the job done for me. I really like Mito. Where is he down here? Is he in the 6K?
Let's see. He is 6'7". Yeah, we'll click him in.
Yeah,
too.
I want to plug him in for sure. And I will say that these majors, we are starting to get some really good golfers in these Chris Kirk at 6'9". I'm not saying plug him in, but it is crazy to see him down there. You know what I mean? Have you noticed that there's just a lot of feels like good golfers in the 6K range at these majors now? The field's just more loaded, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of what makes lineup construction for the majors kind of tough is you can really build however you want. Even if you end up having one of those lineups where you've got 2 guys over 10K and you have to fill in with some of these 6K golfers, if you just get rid of the salaries and look at the list of the guys in your 6 guys in your lineups, the lineups can look really, really nice. So yeah, no, I totally agree here.
Yeah, I'd also plug in Na. Like Na's a good one. I think I plug in. Like he's just got win equity, right? Like it has upside. And like I'm not looking for dudes like here to like just like make the cut for me and like limp their way there. Like I'm just let's just shoot for the moon. You know what I mean? Joel
Absolutely.
Damon has that ceiling too with his approach game. So I'm fine with that. Let's see.
Munoz is a name that's really popping on the sim side of things.
I
Really
like
stands out.
Munoz because he's a streaky golfer and he's been playing well right now. So I
Yeah.
don't mind plugging him in. That's another guy I toss in there. You can scroll down below Mito. Let's see if there's anything else to get excited about. Yeah, I mean now it's starting to get tougher for sure.
It gets hard, yeah. And I think some of these names closer to the bottom here can be pretty tough to start fitting in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with not really playing anyone here.
Cool.
I mean, there's names I don't mind, but just for the sake of doing the video, we don't have to like toss in anyone else. I think down here. I don't know how many golfers that leaves us, but let's run it and just see what it does. Like I think that's an interesting way to do it, and then we can go through and add some guys back and kind of figure it out.
So and I think I think maybe we leave these rules on and are you good with these? We'll get Scotty or JT in every single lineup, at least one guy under 10% owned. See what happens.
I would take the JT Scotty one out.
Okay.
And just because I think that would mess stuff up with a little bit of our setup.
Cool.
And then let's also do change the min salary not to 47,000. So like I did this once and like I just ran it all. I'd want the min salary at like I probably want it at 40 do 49, do like 48,900 or something
all right.
like that. Yeah. That would still, because like I don't want it to give me like a 7K guy when like I can get like Cam Smith. You know what I mean? Like that's a little egregious for me. So that's the thing I want to make sure.
I got no problem with that. Maybe I think for a pool like this feels like, and then maybe this is just me, but this feels like a pool that I would take more with me into like a 20 max or something like that, or even just 20 lineups. For this kind of pool size, how many lineups would you be thinking about building here? I know you had mentioned your pool would be different if you're doing 150 or 20 or 50. What do you think about what we've got here?
Yeah. Is there like a count where it says how many golfers we have?
There isn't actually, and I'm kind of surprised by that. So I mean, maybe we just try to build it and see what we get.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm fine with it. So we can try. You can try 50 if you 50. Want. I think that's a good number to start with.
Yeah, and let's see what we get out of here.
I'm trying to think of what I think it'll do. I think you're going to see a lot of the 7K guys be like kind of pushed in there, like pretty high. Like I bet ownership wise.
There we go. Right, so a couple names really popping right off the bat. We clicked Munoz's name and we got 56%. So
here's a question I'll ask you what you do in this situation. Cause like once you see it all, I don't know if you just like click it and go, but like for me, like I see Munoz at like 56% and like, I don't need 56% Munoz, right? Like let's say he's going to be 10% owned. I'll put a max of like 25 to 30.
Yep.
That's for me. Do you kind of mess around with those min maxes?
I do a lot. And especially if I've gone through the trouble of kind of crafting a player pool that I like, that these are all guys I want to be getting exposure to. I typically kind of want flatter exposures to these guys across the board. I don't need, if I went through the trouble of like figuring out my 8K golfer player pool, I don't need 86% of my lineups all to be Daniel Berger either. That might be a guy that I bring down and drop there.
So what I would do too is like, there's certain guys I know I want to have, right? And I want to be overweight on. Go to Hideki. Like I don't want 20% I saw before. What's it at now?
12. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. No. So I would bump that for me. Like I would bump that to 35 for me is my, like I want exposure to him. Now, of course I'm going to tinker with like, as I tinker with it, I'm going to wait until I kind of get like the perfect ownerships that I like, you know what I mean? And just, I keep moving the min and max around. One thing I definitely think is like the one of the better starting points for me that helps even out the pool is, can you do, you can't, sort by salary.
Yep.
Okay. Oh no, actually, never mind. That would be annoying. Go back to, sort by just the guys in my pool. Yeah. The exposures.
Yeah.
So I would scroll. And if I see guys like the 6'8" guys, like Kevin Na is another one. Like I don't need 28% Kevin Na. Like he's currently projected at 2%, 2.6. So 10's perfect. I'm cool with that. And I like to kick out first, not kick out, but adjust the 6K guys. Like I'd adjust Kirk. I'd put him at like 8%. Like, I mean, if he's going to be 1.7, 8's fine. And that way I'm 4X on him. Mm-hmm. But also now when I adjust all of these cheap guys, it readjusts all of the other golfers that I like, if that makes sense. That's what I notice when I start with the max on the cheap guys and I kick those down, then I can really fix up my other guys. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about this whole thing. One of the best like places in the app, I think, to spend some time is dialing in these exposures and getting them exactly where you want. I think it's just really nice to be able to do this here on the fly. So I saw we were getting 15% Bryson, which actually I think is not so bad here for guy maybe 5% owned here. What do you think about that exposure?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I saw Bryson's name popped up when I was scrolling down here. We're getting to 14% Bryson at the moment, projecting him for like 5.5% owned. What are your thoughts? I know that was a name you wanted to click in there when we were building the player pool. What do you think about that?
Yeah, typically exposure? Those guys, like I would just do 10%. Like I'd make the max 10. And part of it is me just like, it's like one like homer pick. Like it's not anything too crazy. I'm not shoving on it. You know what I mean? But he's going to be really low and it has crazy upside. So
absolutely.
I don't mind mixing it in for sure. And then I like to look at so actually Corey Connors might be a good example. Go to him.
Yeah.
So he is currently -4 leverage at 8%. Like, I mean, now what I would do is I would look at that and I would say, I'm either going to kick Connors out of the pool or I'm going to up him. It's just like, I got to figure out what to do. Cause like at this point, I currently just get overweight on it. I understand like some people they're like okay with leaving those guys in, but like I would just rather either up it or get rid of them. It's one or the other. Yeah.
And I mean, I think I think Corey Connors is an interesting name this week too. I'm curious, 12%, that almost kind of feels low to me.
Yeah, I think it's low.
I think maybe he comes in a little bit higher. So maybe that's a name we just uncheck then. If it's 15%, I'd almost rather just be on the other side of that then.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. And it's all about what you think is best for your process, right? Yep. Like we're just kind of talking through things and what we like, what we don't like. And that leverage column too, like for instance, like Louis, I like Louis this week, but like, do I need that much leverage on Louis? No. So like, I'd probably put my max to him at like, I don't know, like 25, 20, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm good. Like, and that's how I start to adjust it. And then, so when this comes up, this is actually good. I'm happy this happened.
Yeah.
I think when it says we need to expand the pool, what do you do here? You just click yes and then it runs, or does it mess stuff up? What's your kind of thoughts here?
No, so it doesn't mess anything up. So, I mean, what this is basically saying is the builder's saying, so we built you 500 lineups and we're trying to find 50. And at this point, we can't find 50 that match everything we wanted to do. And this can happen, especially if you're playing with a tighter player pool, if you've made a lot of projection updates. I mean, simplest thing to do here, I think, is just to click yes, let it build some more lineups and kind of see what happens. What it will do is it's going to try to build some lineups here that are specifically built to try to get you to your exposure. So a lot of times that'll work, right? Like right off the bat, we're good to go here. But as we continue to go and make more adjustments, maybe we want to bring down Zalatoris down to 20%, right? We're going to start seeing that message more and more. A few things to do if you keep seeing this message. I think the easiest thing is build more lineups, right? Yeah. Instead of saying a 500 lineup pool, build 1,500 lineups, right? Yeah. Get yourself a bigger pool to work with. I think probably the better thing to do if you're still having issues is to come back to this and fine tune this a little bit more, right? Like if we decided, okay, we're actually, we're out on Connors, let's just X them out from our pool here.
Yeah.
If there's a guy that we wanted, Hideki was a guy that you said, I want to bump up that exposure. Let's maybe bump up his projection a little bit more here so that we get more of him naturally in the build screen.
So I would do that too. When I go back, I do that same thing. I'll be like, the guys that I kind of made some adjustments to, if I'm readjusting, I'll kind of bake that in, like, especially if it's like the ones that I really want, like Hideki, like those important ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a good approach. So anytime you get that message, I think, you can just click yes. And especially if you're mostly done, if you don't want to make any other changes, you can click yes. You can roll with those lineups. You're good to go. If you're still going to make more changes, I think the best thing to do, go back to the home screen, go back to step one, make some adjustments to projections, bump up the guys you like, bump down the guys you don't. And then when it comes time to build yourself a 1,500 lineup pool if you haven't already, and work with that instead. You are going to have to do a little bit of, you'll have to redo some of the work, unfortunately, if that happens. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the way it is. So.
Cool. Well, if you guys could please like and subscribe to this video, it helps us out a ton. We appreciate it over here at Run Pure Sports. Also, go sign up at SaberSim. Well, sign up with us and then sign up through. You get the add-on package of SaberSim. That way you can be able to use this optimizer. We partner with them, and we'd love to have you. If you have any questions, get in that Discord tab. Feel free to ask us too. We're happy to help you out. We're always here and available for you guys. Jordan, anything else you want to discuss here, or is that kind of everything?
I think that's about it. I just looked down at the clock for the first time, and I can't believe it's already been about an hour here. It went fast. It was fun doing this. I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, it was good. I think people will learn a lot from that. And like, listen, like we didn't like go through and be like, oh, we like this golfer, we like that golfer, but like we're kind of giving you the process of like trying to figure out when you are going through and building out lineups, how to like do it,
Yeah.
And like I said, I love Hideki this week. That's how I know I'm gonna be overweight on. So if you're looking for like one of my favorite plays, that's one of them this week for sure. So, if you want my play of the day, there we go. We'll go with Hideki. That's the guy that I really like. I'm going to be very high on. But hey, we did a great process of showing the people how to get that done. Jordan, why don't you tell the people a little bit? We do a SaberSim show like once a week. So, why don't you tell the people a little bit about that, and then we'll get on out of here.
Yeah. So did a special for the PGA Championship this week here on the Wednesday morning, but normally do that Thursday early afternoon SaberSim show. So if you get signed up, have questions. I mean, first of all, the whole SaberSim team is in the SaberSim Discord. So if you have questions anytime, anything you're struggling with, or just want to know a little bit more about, fire away in Discord. Somebody will help you out. But I go live here with the Run Pure team every Thursday afternoon. If you want to come join us, ask some questions, see a little bit more. We do different sports, talk all kinds of different stuff. We do have a cool app update coming out here in the next week or so. We'll streamline the process, especially for things like the entry editor and late swap quite a bit. So looking forward to demoing that next week, but that's about it.
Awesome. Yeah. One thing I'll say is maybe next week I can get you on and we can talk like I want to do like a showdown video for it, right? Because like showdown's a little different and totally unique. So maybe next week I can see if we can get that on here on the morning show with you. Because hey, it's showdown season, right? With NBA right now.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have a big $1 million tournament coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think it's June 4th. So should be a good time. But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the Run Pure Sports Morning Show. For me, Mangone, and Jordan, we'll see you guys later.